Anthony Davis's new injury is old news, apparently, but is it a bigger problem for the Lakers than J.J. Redick's relationship with D'Angelo Russell? Plus, we celebrate the weekend with top 3 MVP list. It's the Threekin today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code Locked On NBA to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. I'm Doug Branson, host of the Locked On Hornets podcast and your shot clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. With me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore. And for the Locked On Bulls.
Weekend, Threekin, let's go!
Hold that energy. Hold that energy from when we do our top 3 list. We've got top 3 MVPs coming up. We've got top 3 guys who desperately need a great weekend. And Matt's going to tell you, along with the host of the Locked On Bulls podcast, Hayes. But before we get to any of that, we've got some news updates from around the NBA, including a new injury that's kind of an old injury for Anthony Davis. ESPN's Shams Charania reported Thursday that the foot issue that slowed down Anthony Davis in their last game is actually something he's been managing all year. The Lakers are now calling it plantar fasciitis, and he's day-to-day. Meanwhile, Locked On Lakers is wondering less about what they're going to do about Davis and more about what J.J. Redick is going to do about D'Lo.
It's interesting on a couple levels to me. First, the idea of whether or not this leads to a lineup change. Were I to guess for Friday, it will not.
No, not this quickly. I would agree with you.
Right. If for no other reason than to not just give D'Lo a chance to do better, but to see how D'Lo responds. Mm-hmm. At some point, changes may need to come to the rotation because the bench just is not producing enough. At the same time, the D'Lo Reeves backcourt has its own issues defensively that not sure are sustainable for what they want to do anyway. And if they were going to break that group up, D'Lo is almost certainly the guy that is going to the bench.
Okay, Matt Hayes, let's talk about it. Which of these issues, Anthony Davis's injury history or Redick's ability to manage the personalities on this team as he considers shuffling the lineup, which of these issues presents the biggest threat to the Lakers' postseason hopes? Matt, we'll start with you.
It's a tough one because I think I'll probably lean AD just because he's been so good for them offensively. The thing with Russell is they've actually won his minutes. They've won his minutes by a lot. He's been the guy that's been on the court when they've played the best this season. That doesn't mean that he's played the best. It just means that they've won his minutes. Like, that hasn't been the problem. It's been a lot of other things for them. I do think that if you bench Russell, I do think you're going to have problems with him. I don't think he's going to take that well. It's less a matter of like, who should they bench and who should they start? And it's like, you got to trade somebody. You got to trade D'Lo. Like, you have it. You tried it. You thought the coach could fix it. You thought Darvin Ham was the problem. It's not. Get over it. Trade your picks. Trade D'Lo, or you're going to waste the season and not give LeBron another chance at a championship. That's your choice. You can waste the season, but if you want to compete, you got to trade D'Lo, and you're going to have to attach picks to do it.
I love how consistent Matt's been. I think it was the first episode where Matt first mentioned something about D'Lo and trading him, and he's absolutely right. Like, eventually you're going to have to, but I do think the biggest issue right now is AD. Like, AD's been so good for you when he's been on the court. And so important to, like, initially when we talked about how the Lakers were surprising the season with the success they were having, a large part of that was due to how AD's playing. Now, I wish I could say it's a surprise that AD's dealing with the injury. No, that's what happens when it comes with Anthony Davis. He's going to be dealing with injury. I wasn't even surprised to hear that he's been dealing with something for the entirety of the season because it's Anthony Davis. That's what's going to happen. But I think that's the much bigger issue here. D'Lo, I mean, yeah, he could become a problem if you do move him to the bench, but to Matt's point, eventually the hope is you got to get D'Lo up out of there. That's the biggest issue there. You got to get him out of there.
Well, so going back to that episode of Locked On Lakers, and go check it out. It's a great episode. They talk about some of the deeper bench issues that the Lakers have as part of this whole issue around with them, that when you have a bench that is not deep, the margin for error is so slim. And when you have any kind of day-to-day injury to a guy like Anthony Davis, it can sort of strike at the whole heart of the belief of what the Lakers can do in the regular season, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the trick here, I think honestly, is kind of managing stuff. I will say, like, look, maybe they just had like a rough East Coast road trip to start the season. Like, I don't want to overreact too much to this. Davis's injury status, I think, is like, that's really concerning. Plantar fasciitis doesn't just get better. You need time off. And I will say, I think Davis has gotten so sensitive to the notion of his injury status that he, like, I think last year he tried really hard to play through stuff, and I want to give him a lot of credit for that. I've been a critic of his, and he played through a lot of stuff last year. But if he's got plantar fasciitis, it's just going to hurt, and it's going to be miserable, and he's not going to be able to be the player that he needs to be. So I think this is a tricky situation for the Lakers, and it's one that they're really going to have to focus on in terms of roster management, which again is why, hey, maybe don't blame Darvin Ham. Maybe Pelinka needs to actually get off his backside and go do something about the roster.
All right, well, the Lakers face off against another injury-riddled team, the Philadelphia 76ers, tonight. Here's Locked On 76ers host Keith Pompey's reaction to the news that the Sixers will be without star point guard Tyrese Maxey for multiple weeks.
Tyrese Maxey played in all the games so far. And again, this isn't a knock against him, but the team is 1-6.
Yeah.
You know, Joel Embiid is the guy, right? You know what I mean? He's the guy. So if you have Joel Embiid and you have Paul George, if they're together, you know, then all of a sudden it doesn't go to become a 3-man game. It turns into a 2-man game. I know Maxey scores a lot of points, but what we're talking about, two guys who are Hall of Fame caliber players. You know, Maxey is good. He's an all-star player. He's not quite accomplished the things that they have accomplished yet. Embiid is the best player on the team. He's the most important piece on the team. So I feel like if you take Maxey out of the equation and you have PG and Embiid, they're going to win.
Okay, Hayes, do you share Keith's right to keep hope alive, or is he underselling Maxey's impact?
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I understand what he's getting at. Like, having Paul George and Joel Embiid on paper should put you in a position to be able to win this game. But the problem is they haven't played together yet. So, and we don't know. We don't know exactly how healthy Embiid is. I think he is underselling a little bit to what Tyrese Maxey is, what he did last season when Embiid was down, and just that chemistry that him and Embiid have from playing together for so long. Like, that's there. Paul George is coming back from injury. He hasn't been great yet. Not terrible, but not great yet. So I err on the side that I think that it's underselling Maxey just a little bit, mainly because Maxey's been the one that's been there. He's been the one that's been healthy. We don't know what Joel Embiid's going to be. Yes, he's always going to be good, and I have no doubt that this season's going to be a good one for him, but he's still coming back, and you know, it could be a little bit of a slow to start off and to get back, and I think you need Maxey out there to kind of be that calming agent out there for the 76ers, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Maxey's a ceiling raiser, not a floor raiser. And we kind of saw this last year, right? Where like Embiid goes out and Maxey's numbers drop off and the Sixers go into a pit for basically 2 months. I don't blame Tyrese. Like, I don't think you should expect Tyrese Maxey to be like a superstar. He's not a franchise guy. He's a really good number 2. And that's really good. That's the role that he should play. That's why they paid him. Here's one. For the last 2 seasons, when Joel Embiid is played and the Sixers have played a team under 500, they have won 73% of the time. This is the key here, is like the NBA regular season is not about how you match up with the Celtics, with the Cavaliers, with the Nuggets. It's about, can you rack up wins versus the Wizards? Can you get 4 wins versus the Hornets? And the answer with Embiid is 100% yes. You will win most of those games. He's really good at lifting the ceiling and floor for your team. And so with Embiid back, they'll win enough regular season games to kind of stabilize the season. I think Hayes makes a great point of like, look, you know, Maxey's out and Joel can come back, but Joel might just be out again. And then you're back in trouble. And that's going to be the story of the Sixers season, which we've talked about. But I do think that if we're just talking about, if you can get, I don't know, if they can consistently get Joel in non-back-to-back games from now through the All-Star break, then they're going to be fine.
beating the teams that they're supposed to be, which unfortunately for the 76ers, they're in the Eastern Conference, which means that's one less Eastern Conference team they can play. I saw like top 15 in strength of schedule this season is all Western Conference teams, bottom 15 Eastern Conference. There is definitely a split there. Okay, it's Friday and we are in a ranking mood. We're ranking early MVP leaders and who desperately needs a good weekend. Top 3 list abound in the Threekend ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. In tonight's NBA action, I'm looking at LaMelo Ball. I cover the Hornets for Locked On Hornets. So I'm looking at LaMelo Ball more or less than 28.5 points. Now, before the Miles Bridges injury, I would have mashed the less button because I think Ball is looking for his teammates more, but Bridges is out. And Melo has historically crushed the Pacers, so I'm selecting more than on Melo. More or less, which way will you go? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA, all one word, LOCKEDON NBA, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, and you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And if you want to place some live bets on the NBA regular season MVP ladder that we're about to talk about on this episode, you can get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, leader in the clubhouse, at plus 280. Luka Doncic right behind him at plus 330. Where will they rank on Matt and Hayes' list? Stay tuned to find out. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free and daily newsletter. Did I mention it's free? Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe to stay up to date with local expert analysis, and you get amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from the great Josh Lloyd. All right, before we can get to the weekend, we have to get to the Threekend top 3 list to close out the week that was. We start with a small sample size MVP ladder. Before we hear from Matt and Hayes, I want to hear from Locked On Suns host Brendan Clean, who made an argument in his latest episode for Kevin Durant.
Case for KD as MVP is going to be, because you mentioned Russ, a lot of the case that triple-double year was also the clutch moments. In addition to the narrative, in addition to the triple-double, he had legitimately like a half dozen buzzer-beating game winners that season that just, you look at that and you're like, as almost concretely as possible, they don't win without that. Like, that's about as like direct as it can get. And if KD keeps doing that, the dude already has like a couple of those this season. And if he adds more, then especially later in the season when it's fresher in voters' minds, and he has these counting stats and the team is winning, he's going to have a very, very good case.
Okay, I saw a little scribbling. Maybe that changed some of the ranking here. We'll find out. Here's what I want to do. I want to go straight to the ranking, and then we'll do the analysis. I'm very interested in what you have to say about it, but I want to get straight to the ranking. Matt, top 3 MVP.
All right, I have to put Jokic back at the top again. It's Jokic, and then Shai, and then Tatum. That's my top 3.
Okay, Hayes, what about you?
Same list, just flip-flop 2 and 3. I got Jokic, Tatum. Jokic, Shai, then Tatum. That's what I have.
Okay, Matt, what do you think about the list there?
I mean, look, I'm glad that we're in alignment, right? It means I'm not like way off base. KD, I think, is going to be in that consideration. If you look at his numbers, like 27, 6, and 3 is really good. But this is one of the things is if you're going to win the NBA, if you're going MVP in the modern NBA, you got to be an engine. And the Suns don't really have one because their team is better and they're going to win more games because of that. So that's really good. But Jokic, I looked at the numbers this morning, and even though the Nuggets are struggling, if you assume that they're going to get to 45 plus wins, he is 4th in points per game. He leads in assists and rebounds. I don't really want to cover another MVP season from Nikola Jokic, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I'm really tired of it. I'm tired of his lack of energy about it. But yet here we are because he's too good and the Nuggets are not good enough otherwise. Shai, the numbers actually, here's the biggest thing with Shai. The wins are there. The impact is there. His individual numbers haven't been great yet, and they're going to get better. And as they do, then Shai's going to look like more and more of one. Tatum is the guy here I think most people will be surprised by. But you need to really go look at Tatum's numbers and look at his efficiency and look at that shot that he has worked on over the summer. It looks so much better. They have fixed that thing. They've done some mechanical stuff with that. He looks like an absolute monster. The Celtics are a beast. I think Tatum absolutely is going to be a top 3 finisher in MVP this season.
Okay, 2 guys that you did mention, Luka Doncic and Anthony Edwards. Luka not shooting it as well as he normally does. Anthony Edwards shooting the lights out a little unexpectedly. Not many people expected him to take this volume of 3-point shots. Which of those guys, Hayes, do you think has the best chance of cracking your top 3 list?
I'd say Luka. I think that Luka's in the situation. I just think that, narratives play a part into it, and I think the Minnesota Timberwolves at some point are going to struggle this season. If I had to pick any guy, from either of those 2 guys, it would be Luka Doncic, just because of how he impacts the game for that Dallas Mavericks team so much. And people watch Luka, so I think it'd be Luka if I had to pick one of those guys to crack my top 3.
Matt?
I will go off the board, and I will say a guy that's going to crack. It's going to be Donovan Mitchell. This Cavs team is legit. This Cavs team is for real. You look at Donovan's numbers, and they're actually not all that great. Like, he doesn't pop off the page like I thought he would. But Mitchell will start having those games where it's like 35-5. He'll start having those games where it's like 30-11. And once he starts having those games, because I do think we talked about Darius Garland this week on the show. I think Garland's picked up a lot of the steam here for the Cavs, but I don't know if that's going to hold. There will be a lot more games where Donovan is elite than there are where Garland is great. And so I think as the season goes along with the Cavs team that I do think is a serious contender, I think Donovan Mitchell is going to start getting into that MVP conversation in a big way.
Yeah, and you just mentioned Darius Garland. He's getting a lot of attention right now, maybe stealing some of the attention from Donovan Mitchell. So that may hurt his case, or it may help him just by keeping the Cavs at the top of the Eastern Conference. We'll have to see. By the way, his FanDuel odds right now plus 5,000 for Donovan Mitchell. Kevin Durant a few spots above him at plus 1,900. I do have one more question about Kevin Durant around the Dwayne Wade statue conversation. Kevin Durant went on a podcast and essentially said, no one's going to build a statue for me because I haven't, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, because I haven't been with a team long enough. But if Kevin Durant wins a championship or helps to win a championship for Phoenix, don't you think Phoenix considers creating a statue for Kevin Durant? Because I just feel like that would be almost a no-brainer for me. Matt, what do you think?
I mean, are you going to build 2? Because like Book's going to get one then. Book's like the son. Like he is that. Here's the thing. LeBron didn't get one in Miami, right? He won't get one in Miami. Wade has one because Wade, even in those years, was always more popular amongst Miami fans than LeBron. Like they knew the deal with LeBron. And for the Suns, I think it's the similar kind of deal. You have to be I do think there's a level of you need to be beloved by the franchise to get a statue. And I think that they'll love him for winning a championship, but they'll love Booker more. And so I don't think that he'll get one there. Now, if he does the right thing, not right thing. If he does the thing that I think would be great for his career, not right, great thing for his career and goes back to OKC to finish his career, then yeah, he gets a statue there.
Hayes?
He just blew my mind with that because, if KD goes back to OKC, he's definitely getting a statue. As far as getting one in Phoenix, to me, he'd have to win at least 2. He'd have to win at least 2 in Phoenix. Like, one, I don't think gets it to the points that Matt made. Like, that goes to Book. KD would have to get 2 or 3 titles to get a statue in Phoenix. Like, and then at that point, never mind. I was going to make a joke, but I'm going to be good this weekend. I'm going to be good this weekend.
All right. Well, listen, I think all of this stuff is a little bit relative. And if a market is desperate enough for a championship, I mean, look, if LaMelo Ball gets the Hornets to the second round, I'll be out in front of Spectrum Center with a slab of bronze and a little pickaxe. I mean, it's desperation times in Charlotte. Okay, we are not done with the threekind. Matt and Hayes will rank the top 3 players who desperately need a great weekend. Will Wemby show up on either list after another poor shooting night? Find out next. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by SKIMS. If you're like most guys, you probably haven't put a lot of thought into upgrading your underwear in a while. But with Skims launching their men's line, it's time to rethink what comfort and support actually feel like. Skims is known for quality and fit, and now they're bringing that same attention to men's underwear. Imagine boxer briefs that stay in place, briefs that breathe, and fabrics that feel like they're made just for you. Skims has a range of options, whether you're looking for classic cotton boxer briefs that won't ride up, or some stretch boxer briefs that move with you all day long. These aren't your usual store-bought packs. Skims has tailored each style to keep its shape and deliver comfort that lasts. These briefs are perfect for anyone who wants their underwear to stay where it belongs without sacrificing comfort. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show, Locked On NBA, in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever. Get some early Christmas shopping out of the way. Also available at skims.com. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. There's a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. Search for your favorite NBA team on your favorite podcast app. Just Locked On and your favorite team. Maybe it's Hornets, maybe it's Nuggets, maybe it's Bulls. Let's talk about the Spurs, though. Is it time to get worried about Wemby? We're going to get back to the three-kin. It's top three guys who desperately need a good weekend. I'm not doing a list here, but if I did, I probably would put Victor Wembanyama on it. The Spurs get the win last night, but it was another inefficient night from the field for Victor Wembanyama, who was shooting around 40% to start the season. Locked On Spurs welcomed Matt Guzman from SI.com for his take. Let's listen to that.
Look at this player who's 7'4", who can put players on a highlight reel night after night, and they expect him to be the savior of the youngest team in the league last year. And then he comes back for year two. We've seen what he can do. Now he's going to get even better. And then it's even more of an expectation that he kind of turns around the franchise. I think as far as everyone inside the organization, I mean, they know that, he's still young, he's still developing. They're not expecting to make a championship run right now with Victor. They just want to see how he develops. They want to put pieces around him to help him thrive. I don't think he's really worried about the expectations or the pressure that comes with it. I really do think it's just generated from outside where it maybe seems like those are the expectations. But inside, they're just doing their thing. They're staying in their lane, and they're working on developing their players.
Okay, before we get to your list, your top three list, I want to know, Hayes, are you buying that the outside expectations for Victor Wembanyama are not aligned with what the Spurs are looking for from him, or maybe what you're looking for from him?
No, I'm not buying that, because everybody knows what Victor needs to be doing and what he should be doing here in the second year. Like, facing some adversity is fine. Make no mistake about it. Teams are going to always adjust to what Wemby does, and that's absolutely fine. But Wemby is settling for bad shots. Teams are scheming him out of games. Like, how much Wemby is settling right now for taking jump shots, both in mid-range and at three, that shouldn't be. If the Spurs internally are okay with that, then they got a problem. Because they should not be, in my opinion. They need to be holding Wemby to a higher standard.
I don't know, man. He can't even buy a glass of Bordeaux yet. He's still 20. Look, he's averaging 5.3 blocks and steals per game, right? He's 78th percentile finishing at the rim. Like, there's numbers that are good in there. The reality is he can't hit a mid-range shot or a three to save his life, and he's taken too many of those. And I think that there's a level of discomfort he's got with guys. I do think the word out is in the league on, hey, yeah, he's big, play physical on him, and you're going to be able to get him out of his comfort zone. And so, like, he's going to have to respond to that. But look, San Antonio is never going to rush these type of things. They knew that he wasn't Tim Duncan coming in. They knew that Tim Duncan was a finished product when he came out of Wake. This is not the same kind of deal. They knew that this is a long-term project, and they've done that before with guys like Kawhi Leonard. And I think that the Spurs, you have to credit them for not rushing and being too ahead of it. And they're also just not a team that's ever going to feel the pressure from the outside noise. They will do things at Spurs pace because that's how that team operates. And
to Matt's point, I think you saw how the league is responding in that game against Portland, where Jeremy Grant was guarding him on the slob play and pushing him around a little bit. So yes, the teams definitely feel like they can get physical with Wemby. But I like Matt's argument that you can't whine about Wemby until he can drink wine legally in the United States. Okay, so who are your top 3 guys? If Wemby's not on the list, who, Matt, is on your top 3 list for guys who desperately need to have a good weekend?
I'll go with Dame. All right, the Bucks have some big games coming up. They got the Knicks on Friday night. On Sunday, they've got another big game as they pick on the Celtics. Dame needs a big weekend to kind of be like, hey, we can actually compete here. This Bucks team is spiraling, and Giannis is going to do the Giannis thing. I got no doubt about that. But they need more from Dame in order for them to be able to keep up. Not that Dame's been bad. They need the defense to be better, but guess what? That's probably not happening. They're already changing up the starting lineup, so I think that they're probably just going to need Dame to go absolutely crazy. If Dame has a big weekend, they'll be in much better shape. I'll also go with Luka Doncic. Got big game versus the Nuggets on Sunday. Nuggets are more vulnerable now, even though they got that win over the Thunder. And Luka Doncic needs to be able to put his statement on a game. This is a great opportunity for him. If the Mavericks want to look at themselves as contenders in the Western Conference, beating this Nuggets team when they're banged up, when they are not fully healthy, but doing that on the road, I think is a big addition for them. And then finally, I think for the third person, I'm actually going to go with Steve Kerr. He just came off this big win versus the Celtics. Everything's great. They got the Cavaliers tonight and then Thunder on Sunday. I'm just saying we could look at the Warriors a lot differently on Monday, or we could be saying, all right, now I believe that they're for real.
Hayes, what do you think?
I agree with all the Matt's list. I all great points there. Instead of having Dame, though, I do have Giannis on my list, mainly because I feel like Giannis has to be on for the Bucks to win and start turning this around. I think if you're looking at it and saying, well, who has to be better? Like if Giannis has an off game, Dame could be great, but I still think the Bucks lose. I think that the Bucks, if Dame is so-so, they still need Giannis to be Giannis to win these games. They have some important games on the schedule. So I do have Giannis number 1 on my list. And then next up, Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat has some important games this weekend against Denver tonight on Friday, and then they face off against Minnesota on Sunday. And Jimmy Butler, not to say that he's been terrible, not as some people have made him out to be, but for the Miami Heat, much like with the Milwaukee Bucks, to start turning this thing around, you need a little bit more from Jimmy, whether it be on the offensive side, the defensive side, whatever it is. Jimmy just doesn't have that Jimmy Butler edge yet. And while Jimmy has been a player that lately has paced himself, and you get the best of Jimmy as you get closer and closer to the playoffs, this Miami Heat team may not be in a place to be able to wait to get the best of Jimmy until January, February. They need it now. And so Jimmy's going to have to really step up if this Miami Heat team is going to turn their season around. And then lastly, selfishly, to put on this list, Josh Giddey has to be better. Like the Bulls, you went out and traded Alex Caruso for him. He's your starting point guard. He doesn't give you anything at all, basically, defensively. And while he's averaging, I think 7 assists, 7 rebounds, as well. He's been an absolute cone defensively. And this is a guy who said that he wants $30 million this offseason. He has to be better for, I think, the Bulls to do anything, especially with Zach LaVine out. Everybody else has been basically scoring. Kobe's doing Kobe things. Vooch is doing Vooch things. Josh Giddey has, while he's had some games of putting up stats, they felt like the most empty stats that I've seen in a while in the Bulls uniform. And I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. We are the city of empty stats the last 5 years. We need better from Josh Giddey.
You mentioned Alex Caruso. You could probably throw him on the list too. OKC needs to improve their offense. Their defense is extremely elite, but they've had some problems offensively, and I think some of that rooted with Caruso shooting. Okay, great. I love both of those lists. Let's end the show with our Friday favorites. Matt and Hayes, I want to know what your favorite thing from the week that was. Hayes, we'll start with you.
Petty Ja Morant. It was just it was such a great moment this week. Like, just to see that whole exchange between him and LeBron was just great. It was entertaining. It was basketball. Gets back to the roots of like some of the things that I appreciate about basketball, and that's, have a little bit of attention on the court. Like, it was fun to watch, and it was all within the game. Now, Ja's comments afterwards add a little bit more fuel to that fire, but it was definitely seeing Petty Ja and Petty LeBron in that game.
It was spicy. Matt, I have a question off of that before we get to your favorite thing. Are we going to see the NBA eventually this season loosen up and do a little bit more marketing around Ja? Or does it seem like maybe they're a little scared? They're wait-and-see mode on Ja before they...
No, I think they'll probably embrace him. He's wildly popular. Shoes are great. Like, that's a big driving force of it. His shoes are awesome. He's popular on the social medias, on the Instas and things like that, on the TikToks. And so they will come around on it. I don't think that they're going to look. Let's be real here. One of the most popular athletes of all time is Kobe Bryant. Let's not act like that's ever going to actually be a thing that we hold ourselves to with regard to these types of things. As for the best thing I saw this week, I actually, Doug, Hornets win over the Pistons on Wednesday. Cade Cunningham, LaMelo Ball going back and forth. League pass sicko. I'm watching it at the Nuggets game. I'm dialed in on it. It was awesome seeing LaMelo and Cade go back at each other. A putback game winner by Brandon Miller for the win. LaMelo's like hyped up, hugging him. LaMelo's bought in. Young team. Pistons fought to the end. That's the kind of stuff that I love seeing in the NBA night to night. That was absolutely phenomenal. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask, though, Clippers Kings tonight. Big game, Hayes. Who you got?
The Kings. Come on now. You think I'm going to say anything positive about the Clippers? No.
Before we leave, though, I want to give you my favorite thing. This exchange between Boston Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla and reporters from Zach Cox of the Boston Herald. Joe Mazzulla, on the conversations he's had with Jaylen Brown about his injured hip, quote, "We both kind of mumble when we talk." And then the reporter said, "Did Jaylen mumble at all about the hip?" Mazzulla responded, "Couldn't understand him." The reporter responded, "Does he have a sense of whether it will linger?" To which Mazzulla responded, "The mumbling or the injury?" "Both." To which Mazzulla responded, "I don't." Very good. Okay, good exchange. We learned a lot here.
I hate how much I'm becoming like a fan of Maz for what we need more psychos in NBA media, and having this coach is doing wonders for us on the content side. I hate how much I'm getting to like Mazzulla.
All right. Well, we will keep an eye on it here on Locked On NBA. If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, and that includes YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy this weekend's action. Be kind to each other, and we will see you next week on Locked On NBA.